So what the heck is bougie watercolor? The definition of bougie, well, it's basically extra or unnecessary. For me and everything watercolor on this channel, it kind of means any information or any education that's too much for right now or too extra for right now. Okay, here's the thing. Watercolor, like all things in this life, is not one size fits all, but something happens to our very well-trained and tamped down adult brains when we start a new hobby. We latch on to one right way of doing the thing, and before we know it, or maybe without even knowing it, we begin to worship that one way to the end of our own creative sanity. Let me paint the picture. I'm actually painting a picture. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know in comments if you're having a good time just like watching me paint and hearing me chat. And while you're at it, you know what I'm gonna ask. Give this video a boop, that's a like, if, this is a little bit of fun so far. Okay, back to the proverbial painting of the picture. So you start this new hobby, you watch a zillion videos, maybe on TikTok, YouTube, before you finally drum up the courage to try your hand at watercolor in this instance. You work tirelessly to copy what you're being taught. You see a bit of success, but definitely a lot more frustration in the beginning for most of us, right? Who's feeling me? So you keep at it with that one artist, or maybe there's a collection of artists whose style you're drawn to. You start to adopt their techniques and their habits. You start to also adopt their priorities. But why are you feeling stressed? This is supposed to be fun. It's a hobby, right? So let me blow your mind, hopefully. If your priorities in making art don't match the artist or style that you follow the most, the artist or style that you're trying to recreate, then you'll start to feel more frustration than anything else. Okay, let me explain a little further. So maybe you're coming to watercolor for purely the reason of finding joy, an outlet, stress relief. But maybe the artist or style of artist that you're following came to art, or at this stage in their art, the way that they're teaching is more technical and they're after more of a professional vibe, or maybe they're teaching for the end of selling artwork that appeals to the masses. You can see how the joy priority, the de-stressing priority might misalign with the professional artist priorities, right? And when the two meet, they bump heads and they clash. So while it's all well and good to find an artist that you love the style of, you want to eventually paint like that one, that artist, you want to adopt their style, it can be really helpful for you to understand kind of their approach, their reason for making art, or better yet, their reason for teaching art. Now, figuring that out may be more difficult and maybe not worth your time, and because it may not be obvious what a particular artist's priorities are. So what can you do if you're feeling frustration again and again and again? Here's a couple ideas. So number one, this might come as a surprise, but take a break, a short one and a scheduled one. So maybe a few days where you don't paint anything, you pick another creative outlet, but set yourself a calendar reminder to get back to it. Number two, I love this one. Try a completely different style of tutorial. Like, pull yourself out of the comfort zone of that art that you thought was your dream art, your perfect, attainable art that's now frustrating you. Pull yourself out of it and try something completely different. So for example, for me, I love floral, and but if I'm feeling frustrated, I might go and try to do a super loosey-goosey impressionistic landscape. Number three, really dig deep, re-examine your own reasons or priorities in making art. That might help guide you in choosing the next style of tutorial to take on. Now let's get back to this whole bougie idea. And yes, it's a word that kind of turns heads, but the reality of it is, when you're on a new journey, when watercolor is new to you, the most important thing you can remember is too much is usually too much. So if you're learning in a way where you're just being fed way too much information all at once, it's just too extra and you're going to get frustrated and overwhelmed. In the beginning of a watercolor journey, it's about you, the paintbrush, the paper, and the paint. It's about putting strokes on paper. It's about becoming friends with paint and water and friction from your brush. And it's pretty basic and pretty simple. So maybe my fourth recommendation for what to do when you're getting really frustrated is look at how your hobby, the process of your hobby, has become maybe a little bougie, a little extra. Where can you pare down? Where can you simplify? Maybe think about that one painting that you did, or that one session of swatching colors that really fired you up, and do that again, and do that again and again. I actually have a video all about having that comfort painting, where when you are frustrated, you can always go back to that comfort, that thing that you first loved, that you're really good at. I'm going to link it below. I think it might be important in this conversation. And why are we even having this conversation? Because it's so important. Earlier in a hobby, or even you'll have these like frustration points in a hobby where you're further along. Maybe you're a couple years in, but you're getting frustrated after frustrated after frustrated. And the last thing I want for you is for you to walk away. So I want to give you tools to keep you going. I want you to always remember that fired up, energized, inspired moment or moments that you've had to this point along the way. So when you get frustrated and when things are feeling really bougie, go back, simplify, go back to basics, but never walk away from your watercolor joy. Now, with all this being said, you might be curious about how you discover your style. How do you discover the artist or the type of tutorials that kind of resonate with you? So this video on kind of discovering your style or harnessing your weird is perfect to watch next. Until next time, happy painting.